My Varney refrigerator car came with 11 of these. They're brass. They're obviously roof ribs that go across the roof of the car like this to add a little bit of extra detail. If I look at my instructions here, it doesn't mention anything about them. It just says embossed roof, cement to wood roof. So I made a guess that they're supposed to glue because there are 11 and there's 11 spots for them that they're supposed to glue on here. I've already put one down just to see how it's going to work. But I found this instruction with one of my passenger car kits. It's just a general instruction how to build a model car in 8 easy steps. So this is just kind of generic instructions. And on here, it says here, clip the brass roof ribs in place over the embossed ones. So I was correct, and that's where these go. I mean, it's pretty obvious anyway, but I'm going to put these things on. So my goal now is I'm going to put these roof ribs on. And I have these ice hatches. It says to cut the bottoms off or sand them flat. To kind of figure out how that's going to work. And here is the brake wheel that glues onto the end. They're kind of crude castings. Again, it's from 1940s. The other thing I noticed on here is this. So it seems to me the trucks and the plastic parts were supplied by Model Die Casting or Roundhouse, because this is their logo. So, which is very interesting because I'm looking on eBay trying to find another set of trucks for my passenger car, and I'm finding some that say Roundhouse on the package and they look almost identical. So I sort of had a suspicion that there was a collaboration there, and that sort of confirms it. I wish I had opened up the passenger car box and looked closer at the instructions before I went to build on this, because it would have given me a little additional info. So the way these things work, they're going to glue over where the embossed roof rib is. There's a few other things I wanted to mention here. One is I kind of want to pre-curve them a little bit before I stick them down, because it'll make things a little bit easier. But the other thing I noticed is my roof piece was a curved piece. So it was like a radius and not it didn't go up to a point. So you're not really going to notice it too much. I mean, there's a little bit of gap on the edge, but there was really no way I could fix that without completely remilling the roof. So it'll be a little bit different. So what I'm going to do to glue these things down is I'm actually going to start from the ends and work my way towards the center. Why do I want to do this? Well, the center is where I put that splice in that little thin piece of roof material to hide the fact that this roof piece was cut too short. So I want to make sure that this last one splits the difference in between the second to last one. So I'm going to start from the edges, and when I get to the middle, I will just put this one halfway in between, so that way it's going to look even and you won't notice a little bit of a extra length there. So that I've pre-bent this one to fit over it, and if I look at where to bend, I've got to bend the ends over. So if I look where to bend it, it is just a little bit inward of where these rivet details are. So I'll bend it like so. And I've got the thing kind of pre-curved. So I should be able to just kind of form this over like this. Yeah, that'll work just fine. But I want to see how I got the thing goes over a little bit on the edge. There's a little bit of extra material that I need to cut off. So I'm actually just going to mark that with a good old fine tip Sharpie. There are other brands of permanent markers out there, but because it's like Kleenex, because we use the brand name so much, it's pretty much ingrained. We call permanent markers Sharpies. And a lot of people don't know that there's anything else. But Sharpie definitely are a good quality product. I got that one. I got that one. So that's going to go like that. So that one's ready to be put on. I'm going to use the same contact as cement. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little puddle in this tray, and I'm going to apply it with the toothpick here, and I have a toothpick there. Again, I'm using this stuff because my concern about the super glue is that over time it dries and sometimes the joint weakens. And I don't want this thing to just, especially something brass like this that has a little bit of spring to it. I don't want it to this springiness to spring the thing loose if the super glue kind of dries up. Right now I've got some stringiness. I don't know where that came from. Maybe a spider web, I don't know. So again, put it to both surfaces and kind of let it get a little tacky before I apply it. Make sure I get it right over this embossed roof rib. Just kind of hold it for a minute. It should set right up. Looks like I got enough glue on this end. Put a little bit more on. I'm going to do it straight out of the tube. I think I'm getting it quite enough on with the toothpick. That's a little better. to go ahead and do the rest of these. Probably either pause the video or put it on fast forward here. You can watch me get them all done. And then the next step is going to be to try to figure out how to put the roof walk on. So I'm back and I have put all of the roof ribs on. I have painted them to help me show areas where I might not have glued them on correctly, but they all look okay. I mean, it's a little bit crude, but again, I'm gluing to cardboard here. If you noticed, I used a slightly different technique gluing them on. Rather than putting this cement onto both surfaces and gluing it together, I kind of put a thicker layer on the piece itself, stuck it down, lifted it up a little bit, then I held it back down again until it was secure. And then I actually went and kind of bent the ends off, kind of secured them more to the sides and secured them a little with a little bit of super glue to kind of hold it. So the next step is going to be to glue on more roof details. The ones to glue on are going to be this roof walk and these ice hatches. So the ice hatches, these are very early plastic castings, so the detail isn't that great. The plastic's kind of soft, but it's just to file the backs flat. So there's this like raised rectangular area in the middle and some hinges. So I went and I tried one out and filed it, sanded it flat so it would sit flat on here. So they're going to glue on there, but not until I get the roof walk on. The instructions say to overhang the roof walk 3/32 of an inch at either side. So if I measure the length of this car, it is about 5 13/16 inches long. So if I add 3/32 to either side, that comes out to an even 6 inches. So I need to cut this piece here to 6 inches. Take 6 inches exactly. Let me find something to mark with. Should probably mark it on the other side, the smooth side, but it won't make that much of a difference. I'm just going to cut them with some flush cutting pliers. And I'm just going to take some sandpaper and clean up the edge a little bit to make sure it's smooth. And there's these little channels. Actually, I'm going to kind of rough up the surface a little bit, because this is kind of a smooth plastic. Whenever you got something smooth and you want to glue to it, it never hurts to take a little sandpaper to it, rough it up just a little bit. It will make the glue work better. I guess with the exception of decals. Decals, you want it to be smooth. I'm just going to rough up all the sides. And this is just 220 grit sandpaper. Always nice to have an assortment of sandpapers around. It's not that expensive. Other thing that's nice to have around, I buy these emery boards at the Dollar Tree. And so this is, I think the red side is a coarser grit and the light side is a finer grit, but it's like a little, works better than a file in many cases, and they're cheap and they're disposable. So this is instructions say to glue this on, but there's a problem, and that is, now that I got these roof ribs on, I don't know if you can see it, there's a space between the roof ribs and the roof, which normally that's not a bad thing, because this type of thing didn't always fit directly flush with the roof. It was an elevated roof walk. But my problem is I've got the ends, and there's nothing supporting the ends. So I've got to put something underneath to support it. So I found this styrene plastic. I don't know if you can see it fits under there just about perfectly. So I'm going to cut some pieces of this styrene plastic, little squares of it, to fit underneath here. And I'm going to glue it underneath. One of the issues I have is I don't know what kind of plastic this roof walk is. Again, this is a plastic from the 1940s, and I'm not a plastics expert, especially on the history of plastics. But one thing you can do is, there's plastics that you can glue to, plastics you can't glue to. And I have myself some plastic cement, this Mr. Cement, that I use to assemble my plastic kits. And so the one thing you can do is you can basically just test it. So you take and you put a little puddle of the cement on the plastic that you want to glue, and if the plastic if the cement causes the plastic to rub off, then you have a plastic that the glue will glue to. If you can just wipe it off and it doesn't even distort or discolor the plastic at all, then it's one of those plastics like nylon that you can't really glue to very easily. So I marked this and the places where I'm going to glue these little plastic shims underneath. I could glue them to the roof and then to the plastic, but I think I want to glue them to the plastic first to make sure I got a good bond between these plastic shims and my roof walk. So I've gone and I've marked it sort of like the center, though I'm having a hard time seeing some of them. Again, this is one of these things I could have done it on the other side, but I wasn't really thinking too much about it. But there is an advantage to doing it on this side, and that is when I put cement on it, it's not gonna, my mark's not gonna come off. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try, this is a leftover piece from just a scrap piece of sheet styrene that I used to make sort of like part of the diaphragm for my passenger cars. And I kind of want it to be right down the center. I want it to be even, right? I think this is about 1 centimeter. Just make a little mark there with my knife. And a little mark on this side. And then I can kind of stick my knife in the little mark that I made. That's how I can kind of locate my ruler here to follow the marks. Just like that. I have some, and it should not be, it should be about the same width. Oh, it's perfect. So it's about the same width as my roof walk. I'm actually going to remark this to where I know exactly where the edge is going to be. And the others I'm just going to center. So I'm not just going to roughly make these as square as I can and not worry too much about it since it's mostly going to be hidden. I guess I'm lazy and I don't feel like measuring or making more precise things. You know what, I'm going to leave the longer piece for the end because there's more of an overhang there. And these ones will be the intermediate pieces. So I'm going to take this and put a little bit of my cement right there. Take a piece of plastic, my styrene, and glue it on. And I am actually going to take one of these clothespins and clamp it. These clothespins are great. I just bought another pack of them. I don't know, I gave $1.25 for probably 50 of them at Dollar Tree. Really nice to have around for modeling. Those would be those pieces. I don't know how many more of these. Where did I put the new back? Here it is. I want to give 60 of them for $1.25. So a few people have made videos about modeling materials that you can get at Dollar Tree or for cheap. Thinking about making a video about materials you can get for free. sure somebody else has done the same thing, but I've got a list of modeling materials that I have gotten for free. I think in our previous video I might have mentioned tire weights. Well, some folks have reported to me you can get them for free at a tire store if you just ask nicely. Maybe true, but also, like, there's a fair amount of junk that just lays on the side of the road. So stuff that, nuts, bolts, tire weights, stuff that just lays on the side of my street. And if I go around and I walk, I'm gonna find plenty of those tire weights just laying there. I've picked up plenty and I've used plenty. Or it might be a big nut or a big washer or something that I can use to weight a car down with. Not as clean looking, but when it's going inside an enclosed box car, a weight is a weight, you know? So, you know, I clamped these down. This is sticking well enough that I don't think I need to worry about it. Don't think I need to worry about it. And this is gluing quite well. Although I'm going to need to cut more pieces of, more squares of styrene. But I have plenty. It's another thing. I save when I'm putting together a kit or scratch building something, or I've got little bits and pieces left over. Even the smallest little bits of plastic sometimes come in handy because I don't have to cut an entire big sheet. Put this over here before I lose it. I don't have to cut from an entire big sheet. So I've got all these little bits in my scrap styrene bin. So here's another one. Scrap styrene bin. If I looked harder, I might have found one exactly the size that I needed, but I didn't feel like digging today. But this is another piece from my passenger car project where I cut something a little bit too small. So into the scrap bin it went, only to be used the next day. I need 4 more little squares. I can get 3 out of this. I'm about out of cement. I need to go to the store and get some more. What other handy things you can get for free include coffee stirrers. I think I showed me using some of them on a gondola car I was building a while back. And I mean, there's plastic tube coffee stirrers. There are wooden coffee stirrers. You also collect popsicle sticks, or the stick that your corn dog comes on. For the flexible drinking straws, the bendy ones, the ones that have one bend in them, the little corrugated part where it bends. You got cut that off and you got yourself a corrugated metal pipe, corrugated metal culvert. It's another free one. Of course, there's cardboard you can cut from cereal boxes, frozen pizza boxes, beer cartons, things like that. Maybe another good video would be the things you can pick up from the thrift store that you can salvage parts from. A lot of my electronics parts result from me disassembling broken electronics. So there's these little squares on the roof that were probably intended to kind of hold this at one time or before. Because I think what happened is when they designed it, they first just had an embossed roof, and then Gordon Varney's like, oh, it'd look better if we made these little brass roof ribs, and you know, keep adding to the kit. So I think originally it didn't have these. That's why the instructions doesn't have them. But the later supplemental instructions does. I'm trying to think of what's going to work best to glue this on. I'm going to try this again. The stuff kind of dries flexible, and so I can center it over these little square pads on the roof, kind of get it lined up in the center. I'm assuming they're in the center. So I'm gonna, that's actually holding pretty well right now. I was gonna lift it off and wait 5 seconds and stick it back down like the roof ribs, but this is kind of grabbing, so maybe it's because of the styrene. Wow, that looks nice. I didn't have it quite centered longitudinally. I'm going to try that again. Just a little bit down that way. Press it firmly. So once I get this part down and I get the ice hatches glued on, I'm either going to get out the airbrush, so I'm going to mask off the yellow sides and get out the airbrush and airbrush the whole roof unit to give it a nice even color. Or I've got some rattle can paint, which is actually just red oxide primer, which is kind of been my default boxcar red over the years. Just Rust-Oleum or Krylon red primer. I probably pick up at Ace Hardware, wherever. And it is the perfect boxcar red color. So there we go. There's this glued on. Next up is the roof hatch. Where did I put the one that I've sanded off? Oh, here it is. It's not completely sanded. This is where this thing is going to come in a little bit handy. Go ahead and sand this. And see if the instructions kind of locate it. Not really, but it does at least show which way they go. And I've noticed that this side, this roof rib, is a little bit closer to this end than on the other side. So I want to start with this end because then I can make the other end even. So there's a little bit less room here to position this one. So if I go ahead and position them on this end and then just sort of do the other ones the same distance from the edge, I think that's the way it's going to look best. I think these things are oversized anyway. But it's basically going to get abutted all the way up against that roof rib. And I'm just going to kind of place it in the middle. So halfway in. I need to stick this down a little bit better on this end first. That seems to be stuck down. Pretty well. I haven't sanded the backs of those ones yet. I'm just doing this one here just to kind of see how it works. Then I'll go back and do the rest. That's one of them on according to the directions. And I'll go ahead and I'll do the other ones. So the steps left to do. I'm quite happy that I got this roof and roof walk on. I think it looks pretty nice. Curious to see how it's going to look after I kind of spray the whole thing, get a nice even color. I think it'll look pretty nice. But still need to figure out what to do about these ends a little bit here. There's some ladders. So it came with a whole bunch of this ladder stock. It's to make ladders here, here. The little steps got to go in the middle here, and then one at each corner you make out of the same ladder stock. Then other than that, it's just the brake wheel, a few pipes. So it says to cement the brake wheel, these retainer pipes. Then after that, it's just probably, I'm going to try and do a little bit of maybe airbrush weathering, some dull coat, and it will be done. And here's the completed roof. I actually masked it and I sprayed it with some Rust-Oleum red primer, which matches the paint of the ink of the printing pretty well. As you can see, it's not perfect. The roof is a little bit rough, as to be expected. But overall, I'm happy with the way it's coming out for a cardboard model. I need to figure out what to do about the corners. I have developed a technique which I'll show you in the next video using this Elmer's plastic wood product and some masking tape to just kind of mask off the corners and rub that in to the corner to kind of smooth it out a little bit. If I had known about it, I would have done the same for the roof corners, but overall it's pretty good. And I will finish it up by putting on the ladders and the stirrup steps and the final details. And I'll do that in the next video.